Chapter 14. The two girls stayed up all night. It took a long time to scoop the disgusting jellyfish into a wastebasket, dump them into the garbage outside, and remove the bed linens. "Just throw the sheets away," Karen had cried, still hysterical. "Throw everything away." Even after clean linens had been put on, the sour, fishy smell remained in the apartment. "I can't sleep in that bed tonight," Karen said, shuddering. In the small kitchen, Anne-Marie poured water from the kettle. She was silently making Karen a cup of hot herbal tea. "You can sleep in my bed," she said quietly, dunking her tea bag. "I'll take the couch." "No, I won't be able to sleep anywhere," Karen replied angrily. "Who would do such a thing? It's just so disgusting." "It had to be Renee, I guess," Anne-Marie said. "Do you take sugar?" "What are you doing?" Karen asked. "Making you a cup of tea." "Tea? What for? I'm not sick." "I just thought—" "Well, forget it." Karen paced to the window and back. "I know you're upset, but you don't have to take it out on me," Anne-Marie protested, taking a sip of tea. She put the cup down quickly, having burned her tongue. "How did Renee get in here?" Karen demanded. "The apartment was locked, right?" "The window was open," Anne-Marie said, pointing to it. "She could have climbed in. You know, I saw her today." "What?" "In fact, I had kind of a fight with her. I wasn't going to tell you because I didn't want to upset you." "Go ahead," Karen said. "Tell me. I couldn't be any more upset." "Well, I ran into her on Main Street right after lunch. She immediately launched into this attack on you about how you were trying to steal Jerry from her." "That's what she said?" "Yeah," Anne-Marie said. "She said a lot of crazy things. She said you were looking for trouble and didn't have any idea just how much trouble." "She was making threats?" Karen felt sick. "Yeah, I call them threats," Anne-Marie said, rolling her eyes. "It was unbelievable. She was screaming at me. I couldn't get her to shut up. I mean, people were looking at us." "So what did you do?" "Finally, I just said, 'Renee, I'm Anne-Marie, not Karen,' and I walked away." "How awful." "Yes, it was. I was really upset. I mean, Renee was really losing it." "But she had no right to scream at you because of me. I'm going over there right now," Karen decided. "I'm going to have it out with her once and for all." "Karen, sit down. It's nearly 3 in the morning. Anne-Marie walked over, took Karen by the shoulders, and guided her back to the couch. "You've got to try to calm down." "Calm down? Did you see that disgusting pile of slime in my bed? I'll never calm down. Never." "Karen, this isn't like you." "What is she going to do to me next? That girl is sick, Anne-Marie. She's really sick. Where does she live?" "She's staying with a friend in Santa Monica, remember? She told us the address that first night at Ray J's." "Oh, yeah, I remember." Karen jumped up and headed to her bedroom. "Oh, that smell! Are you sure all the windows are open? I'm going to have nightmares about jellyfish for the rest of the summer." "Listen, chill out, okay? Wait till morning. Then we'll go over to Renee's together if you like." "Well, maybe you're right," Karen agreed. She walked over to the counter and picked up the cup of tea. She took a sip and made a face. "Need sugar. You want a cup?" "Yeah, I guess," Anne-Marie sighed. They stayed up talking for another hour. Then Anne-Marie went to bed and Karen tried to get to sleep on the living room couch. Staring up at the shifting lights and shadows on the ceiling, she saw the pink and purple jellyfish again, saw them glistening so wetly on her sheet, felt the cold stickiness on the back of her neck, and sat up with a jolt, about to scream again. "Get a grip on yourself, Karen," she scolded herself. "This is exactly the way Renee wants you to react." She lay back down, struggling to get comfortable, but it was hopeless. When the sky started to lighten, Karen was still wide awake. She went to the window, settled herself on the sill, and watched the sun come up. At 8, she went into her room, pulled on a pair of straight-legged jeans and a maroon sweatshirt, gave her hair a few careless swipes with a brush, and silently sneaked out of the apartment. "I don't need Anne-Marie to come with me," she thought. "I've given her enough grief already. This is supposed to be her vacation after all. It's supposed to be mine too," she thought, suddenly feeling very sorry for herself. She had a sudden impulse to call Jerry, to tell him what Renee had been doing to her. The whispered phone calls, the spray-painted warnings on the wall, and now the disgusting pile of jellyfish. And of course it was obvious that Renee had tried to drown her on Wednesday in the ocean. She wanted to tell Jerry everything, to let him know what Renee was really like. But no, this was between Renee and her. Jerry had promised that he would tell Renee it was all over between them, that he was interested in Karen now, but Karen knew she could no longer leave it to Jerry. Renee had gone too far. Karen couldn't sit around and let herself be victimized any longer. The morning air was chilly and wet as she hopped down the stairs, searching her jeans pocket for her car keys. She let the car warm up for a few minutes. To her surprise, she didn't feel the least bit tired despite not having any sleep at all during the night. Anger can give you real energy, she thought. If that were true, she figured she had enough energy to keep going for days. Looking in the rearview mirror at the still deserted street, she put the car in drive and headed toward Santa Monica. Where is everybody, she wondered, then remembered that it was Sunday morning. Who in her right mind would be out on the street at 8 on a Sunday morning? Only us angry lunatics. There was no traffic at all, so the drive was short. The house, Karen remembered, was off Ocean Park Boulevard. Renee had spent some time describing it in detail that night, mainly because she had never stayed in a house that was painted pink with powder blue trim. The house shouldn't be too hard to find, Karen thought, slowing down. She passed a small triangular green park, then spotted the house between 2nd and 3rd Streets. She pulled over to the curb, cut the engine, and stared up at the narrow 2-story house. This had to be it. It was definitely pink with blue trim. She took a deep breath and climbed out of the car. This will all be over in a couple of minutes, she told herself. As she walked up to the powder blue front door, she was suddenly filled with doubts. What am I doing here? Why am I here? What am I going to say to her? But the salt smell of the ocean in the morning air brought back the sight and feel of the jellyfish, and the reminder of the horror of the night before pushed her forward with renewed anger. She started to knock on the door, but, to her surprise, saw that it was open a few inches. She peered in through the crack. It was dark inside. Just then the front door of the next house opened, and a balding, middle-aged man in striped pajamas stepped out onto his front stoop. He bent down to pick up the Sunday LA Times, and, seeing Karen, smiled and nodded. "Nice morning," he said. "Yeah, I guess." Karen wasn't in the mood to chat. "They say it's going to be a hot one." Then, groaning over the weight of the enormous paper, he disappeared back into his house. His appearance unnerved Karen somewhat. It was so unexpected. She started to knock again, then changed her mind and called into the house. "Renee, are you there?" No reply. Karen pushed the front door open a bit wider. The door squeaked as she pushed it. "Renee? Renee?" Silence. Karen stepped into the small entryway. She peeked into the dark living room. No one there. The room was furnished with chrome and white leather easy chairs and an enormous circular glass coffee table, all very expensive looking. "Renee? Anybody home?" Silence. "Renee? I want to talk to you." She walked quickly through a short hallway and into the kitchen in the back. This room was brighter since the sun was pouring in through the window. Karen's eyes lit on the sink piled high with dirty white china dishes and bowls. Then she saw a half-eaten sandwich on a plate, and an open bottle of Coke on the Formica and Butcher Block Island in the middle of the room. Then her eyes wandered down to the floor, and she saw 2 bare feet, the toes pointing up. Her breath caught in her throat. She walked closer. "Renee?" She peered around the island and saw a girl lying on her back, her mouth open in a frozen O of horror, her eyes wide, unmoving, staring up at the ceiling. "Renee?" She was wearing shorty pajamas. "Renee?" Her frizzy hair circled her head, standing straight out at the sides. There was an enormous bump on her forehead. Karen reached down and touched Renee's arm. It was cold as death. Renee was dead. Karen dropped the limp, cold arm and stood up. She took a deep breath and prayed that she wouldn't start screaming. Chapter 15. The police station, with its lime green cinder block walls and glass brick separators, had a California flair to it. It was brightly lit, carpeted, and had 2 miniature palm trees guarding the double-door glass entranceway. Not at all the stereotypical police station of movies or TV. As she sat on the green plastic bench, waiting her turn to be questioned, Karen would have preferred the more traditional, dark, dingy station house. She wanted everything to be gray, even black. She wanted to close her eyes and disappear into darkness, disappear from this nightmare. How could this be happening? She had called the LAPD immediately, pushing 911 with fingers that wouldn't stop trembling. She had told the officers who arrived a few minutes later everything: who the girl lying on the floor was, how she had happened to find her, how she happened to know her. The friend Renee had been staying with wasn't there. She was out of the country for the whole summer, and the police had ruled Renee's friend out. There really wasn't much more Karen could tell. She had no idea who murdered Renee. They had already questioned Jerry for more than an hour. Now Anne-Marie was in there being grilled. Karen was next. But why? What more could she tell them? What good would more questions do? All the questions in the world couldn't bring back Renee. All the questions in the world couldn't remove the picture of Renee's body in the kitchen from Karen's mind. a picture she knew she would be seeing again and again for the rest of her life. She had been sitting there on the bench, staring at the unlikely palm trees for about 20 minutes, when her mother arrived, frantic as usual, and her lawyer, Ross Garland. "Karen, what on earth? This is so horrible," her mother said, dropping down onto the bench beside her. "Are you all right?" "I guess," Karen said. What could she say? That she saw Renee's pale white body every time she closed her eyes? Mr. Garland started to say something, but the door opened and Anne Marie came hurrying out, looking as flushed as her pink t-shirt and very frightened. "They think I did it. I know they do," she exclaimed to Karen, ignoring everyone else. "Anne Marie, what do you mean? How can they?" Karen's mother demanded. "Oh, hi, Mrs. Mandel," Anne Marie said, barely looking at her. "Some friend of Renee's saw me fighting on Main Street with Renee yesterday afternoon. When they heard about what happened to Renee on the radio, they phoned the police. I tried to explain to them that I had no reason to kill Renee. I hardly knew her, but they think I did it. I know they do." "Calm down," Mr. Garland said, putting a hand gently on Anne Marie's shoulder. "The police are a little more sophisticated than that." "Thank you," said a deep voice. Everyone looked up to see a grim-faced police detective. He was young-looking with blonde hair and narrow blue eyes set close together. He was wearing dark brown pleated slacks and a short-sleeved white shirt with a dark blue necktie, pulled down a few inches over an unbuttoned collar. "I'm Detective Franklin," he said, looking at Karen's mother. He turned to Anne Marie. "We don't think you did it," he told her. "We're questioning everyone we can, but you're not a suspect." Anne Marie didn't seem to believe him. "That's what the police always say before they spring a trap?" "This isn't TV," he said brusquely. "Sometimes I wish it were." A tall, uniformed lieutenant came walking by. "Have you reached the girl's parents?" Detective Franklin asked. "Not yet. They're in Europe, somewhere outside Paris. We're still working on it. The victim's cousin is coming up from Anaheim." Franklin nodded. He looked down at Karen. "You're next." "This is my mother and our attorney, Mr. Garland," Karen said, climbing to her feet, surprised by how shaky her legs felt. "Why don't you wait out here and have a cup of coffee?" Franklin told Mrs. Mandel. "The machine has surprisingly good coffee." He motioned for Karen and the attorney to follow him. His office was small but cheerful. He had a large, psychedelic-style Grateful Dead poster behind his desk, and several thriving hanging vines over his window. He didn't wait for Karen and Garland to sit down before he began firing questions at Karen. "How long did you know Renee Watson? When did you meet? Why were you at her house this morning? If you just met her last Monday, how did you know where she lived? Had you been there before? How well did you know her boyfriend?" Karen answered the questions as best she could, staring hard at the orange and green poster behind the detective. As she replied, several of her own questions ran through her mind. Should I tell him about the jellyfish? Should I tell him how I almost drowned because of her? Should I tell him how I feel about Jerry? How Jerry planned to break up with her because of me? She decided no. What good would it do to tell the police detective about any of that? It would only make it look as if Karen had a real motive for killing Renee. It would only make Karen a more serious suspect in the murder. And since Karen knew she wasn't the murderer, she decided it would serve no useful purpose to reveal those things. "How well do you know Jerry Gaines?" "Not very well. I met him last Monday, too. I've seen him a few times since." "On dates?" "Not really. I knew he was dating Renee." "But you were attracted to him?" "A little." "I'm doing okay," Karen thought. "This isn't so hard. It would be a lot harder if I really had something to hide." The questioning went on for nearly 20 minutes. It became hot and stuffy in Detective Franklin's small office, but he made no move to open the window or turn on the air conditioner. He kept asking the same questions again and again, reworking them, then asking them again. "He's trying to trip me up," Karen realized. "He's looking for an inconsistency. He's really pretty clever." When he finally led her back to the front waiting room, she felt exhausted. Anne Marie and her mother were seated side by side on a green bench, talking quietly. "I've got to get home. I'm missing my son's birthday party," Garland said, looking anxiously at his watch. "It was so nice of you to hurry over on a Sunday," Mrs. Mandel said, getting up and taking Garland's hand. "Don't worry," Garland told Karen, starting toward the double doors. "Try to forget about it. I know that's not easy, but try." And he disappeared out the door. Before the door could close, 2 uniformed officers pushed through it. They were grappling with a young man who was obviously displeased about having to accompany them. "Let go of me." Karen heard a young man growl, and she recognized the voice before she saw the face. It was Vince. "You've got no right," he was shouting. "Why are you bringing me here?" One of the officers gave Vince a hard shove toward Detective Franklin's office. Vince nearly stumbled, but the other policeman caught him by the arm. I didn't do anything, Vince protested. Then you won't mind answering a few questions, the first policeman said. For a brief second, Vince turned and his eyes caught Karen's. He didn't seem to recognize her. Maybe he was pretending not to. Maybe he was concentrating so hard on his struggles with the policeman he didn't see her. Karen felt a chill run through her body. Vince disappeared into Detective Franklin's office. The door was slammed behind him. Did Vince kill Renee? She didn't realize that her mother was tugging on her sleeve. This is a little too much real life for me, Mrs. Mandel said. Come home with me now? Hey, do I look that bad? Karen asked, still thinking about Vince. You don't look good, Mrs. Mandel said in her usual maddeningly direct way. I, didn't sleep well last night, Karen told her. She looked at Anne-Marie, who still looked pale and shaken. But I think we'll go back to Daddy's, Karen said. He's expecting us. Where is your father, anyhow? Mrs. Mandel asked, suddenly remembering her former husband's existence. Why isn't he here? I called you instead, Karen said, thinking quickly. You know how Daddy is in an emergency. Mrs. Mandel seemed to find that a reasonable excuse for his absence. Karen secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Anne-Marie and I are going to try to enjoy the rest of our month together, she told her mother. Mrs. Mandel looked at her doubtfully. If only you didn't look so terrible. I really wish you'd come home with me, both of you. For a brief second, Karen considered it. It would be nice to be safe and cozy back home with her mother to take care of them. But no, she wanted to see Jerry. She had to see Jerry, to see how he was taking this, to make sure he was okay. He must be terribly, terribly upset. After all, he and Renee had been going together for years. She wondered if Jerry had any idea who might have killed her. She wondered what he had told the police. No thanks, Mom, she said, and draped her arms around her mother in a long hug. Anne-Marie and I will go back to Venice, but I'll call you tonight. Promise. The three of them walked quickly out of the police station. The fresh afternoon air felt good on Karen's face. She took a deep breath and stretched. Having no sleep the night before was beginning to catch up with her. They said goodbye to Mrs. Mandel, who, still looking very worried, hurried to her car. Karen had parked the Mustang a few blocks in the other direction. She and Anne-Marie were only a half block from the police station, walking slowly, silently, just glad to be outdoors, when a tall, red-haired girl in white denim jeans and an orange top that clashed with her hair stopped in front of them on the sidewalk. Are you Karen? She asked, looking at Karen with a nervous expression on her face, her large, dark eyes darting back and forth between Karen and Anne-Marie. Yes, Karen answered uncertainly. How did you know my name? It doesn't matter, the girl said mysteriously. I just want to warn you to stay away from Jerry. What? Anne-Marie cried, appearing more startled than Karen. Who are you? Karen asked angrily. Are you his girlfriend too? I don't want to make a scene, the girl said, ignoring Karen's questions. Just, please. Her eyes brimmed with tears as she started to plead. Please stay away from Jerry. I'm warning you. She turned and hurried away, taking long, quick strides across the sidewalk. But Karen ran after her, caught up, and stepped in front of her. Who are you? Answer me. Why are you warning me? Who are you? The girl shook her head, her red hair quivering about her face. Finally, she said, I'm Jerry's sister. She ducked past Karen and started to run. Well, Jerry's old enough to make his own decisions, Karen shouted after her. She started to chase her, but Anne-Marie held her back. Come on, we've got to get home. Enough, Anne-Marie said softly. Karen was still breathing hard, her eyes following the girl until she disappeared around the corner. Why would Jerry's sister be waiting here for me? It doesn't make any sense. Nothing makes any sense, Anne-Marie said. Nothing at all. Do you think she's the one who's been trying to frighten you away from Jerry, not Renee? An even more frightening thought crossed Karen's mind. Do you think Jerry's sister killed Renee? Huh? Karen hadn't realized she was talking out loud. Just a thought. They drove back, both of them chattering without stop about what had happened. It was almost as if they were afraid to be silent, afraid that silence would give them time to think, that if they could keep talking, keep tuned into each other, they could shut the real horror out. But Karen knew she couldn't shut it out for long. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Renee again. Every few seconds, she was back in that kitchen, looking down at the bump on Renee's head, making the horrifying discovery all over again. I've never known anyone who died, Anne-Marie said, as Karen parked the Mustang across from the apartment house. The sun was lowering itself behind the houses and apartment buildings on Speedway. The sky was red. All of the buildings looked red as blood. I guess we should get some dinner, she said. I'm not very hungry, Anne-Marie told her, evening shadows darkening her face. Hi, a voice called. Jerry stepped away from the apartment house wall and walked toward them slowly, his hands in his jeans pockets. It took Karen a moment to recognize him. His usually neat hair was windblown and standing on end. As he came close, Karen saw that his eyes were red-rimmed, his cheeks were puffy, as if he had been crying. "Are you okay?" Karen asked. He took her hand and squeezed it. His hand was ice cold. "Yeah, I'm okay, I guess." He stood there, leaning toward her, staring at her, still holding her hand. I'm sorry," Karen stammered. "I'm sorry you had to be the one to find her," Jerry said, his voice quavering. He let go of her hand and looked away. "It's really terrible," Anne-Marie said awkwardly. "I just can't believe it," Jerry said, still looking across the street. "I just talked to her last night, and today." "The police will find whoever did it," Anne-Marie said. Jerry didn't respond for a long while. "What difference does it make?" He turned to Karen. "I just feel so guilty. I was going over there tonight to break up with her, and now—" Karen raised a finger to his lips. "Shh! You shouldn't feel guilty. You didn't do anything to feel guilty about." And then she added, "Oh, by the way, your sister stopped us when we came out of the police station." "Huh?" Jerry's eyes narrowed in surprise. "Your sister? She stopped me. He put a hand on her shoulder. "Karen, what are you talking about? I don't have a sister." Chapter 16. "Do you think Vince killed her?" Karen asked. She, Anne-Marie, and Jerry were sitting in the back booth at Ray J's. They had the entire row of booths to themselves, the restaurant uncrowded this early on a Sunday night. They had ordered a pizza, but none of them had much of an appetite. Once or twice, Karen had attempted to change the subject of discussion away from Renee, but they quickly realized it was pointless trying to talk about anything else. And again, talking about it, Karen realized, helped them to keep calm, to keep from falling apart and giving in to a strong feeling of terror that lurked just beyond their words. "I don't know," Jerry said, tapping his long fingers on the Formica tabletop. "Did Vince know Renee?" Anne-Marie asked, taking a small bite from her slice, then dropping it back on her plate. "I think he followed her once on the boardwalk," Jerry said. Whistled at her or something, but I don't think he really knew her." "So he'd have no reason to kill her," Karen said, thinking about her motorcycle ride to Santa Monica with Vince. Could she have been riding with a killer? Could she be so attracted to a killer? "He's a dangerous character," Jerry said, staring down at his pizza slice. "He could have done it, just for a thrill." "No, he wouldn't do that," Karen said. The words just slipped out of her mouth before she had a chance to think about them. "Well, the police think he could have," Jerry replied, angry for some reason. Karen was startled by the heatedness of his reply. "Sorry, I didn't mean—" His expression immediately softened. He took her hand over the table. "No, I'm sorry. I don't know what I'm saying. I don't know anything. At first, I was so stupid. You know what I thought?" "What?" Karen asked. "I thought Renee committed suicide because of me, because she knew I was going to break up with her. Do you know how awful I felt?" His voice cracked. His face reddened. He closed his eyes. "Pretty stupid, huh?" "Jerry, please." "Well, the police must have thought I was pretty stupid," he continued, nervously picking at his slice of pizza. "When I sat down in that detective's office, I asked if Renee left a note. Can you imagine? Someone clubbed her to death, and I was asking if she left a suicide note." He laughed, a mirthless, painful laugh. "Jerry, stop." Karen removed her hand from under his. "There's no point in torturing yourself. It won't do you any good to make yourself feel guilty over this." "I guess you're right," he sighed. He leaned back against the red vinyl seat and closed his eyes. "You've been awfully quiet," Karen said to Anne-Marie. "I just can't believe I'm a murder suspect," Anne-Marie said softly, tugging at a short tangle of blonde hair. I'd like to go home? Back to New York?" "Yeah, but the detective said I can't leave town. Do you believe it?" She shredded her paper napkin between her hands and let the pieces flutter to the table. "I'm sorry," Karen told her friend. "Now I feel guilty. You're a prisoner here. It was supposed to be a fun vacation, and—" She stopped because something at the restaurant window caught her eye. A boy with straight brown hair. He was staring at them from outside on the sidewalk, nose pressed against the window glass, shielding his eyes with both hands. It took Karen a few seconds to recognize him, but she was sure she was right. Mike! Why was Mike watching them like that? What was he doing here? Without saying a word to Anne-Marie or Jerry, she climbed out of the booth and hurried up the aisle to the front door. When he saw her coming, Mike's face filled with surprise and he took off. By the time Karen got to the sidewalk, he had disappeared.